Hormonal neurotransmitter theory. Testosterone is not aggression. It is the biological permission to believe you can win. Low testosterone doesn't make you weak. It makes the world look unbeatable. Your hormones don't respond to motivation. They respond to the type of life you live. Testosterone rises only in one place, where struggle is real, but victory is possible. Men don't lose testosterone with age. They lose it when life stops demanding courage. How the body actually manages power, motivation, and stability. To understand hormones and neurotransmitters, you must first understand one thing. The body is not a laboratory, and it is not a switchboard. It is a system of logistics, priorities, and adaptation. There are several fundamental laws that govern how hormones and neurotransmitters actually work in a living human being, not in theory, but in reality. The first law: movement comes first. The most important rule is this: a basic, sufficient level of movement on your feet is mandatory. Only after that does any other form of movement begin to work. Fighting, swimming, yoga, strength training. Without the logistics provided by blood flow and lymphatic circulation, hormones and neurotransmitters simply cannot reach their receptors and begin their action. They may be produced, but they remain useless. Empirically, the minimum effective baseline is 6 to 10 kilometers of walking per day, plus 50 to 100 bodyweight squats. For those aiming at radical changes in the nervous and hormonal systems, this range expands dramatically, up to 10 to 20 kilometers of running and 400 to 600 squats. Without circulation, hormones are like a delivery ordered to a house you no longer live in. The second law: sensitivity over production. Increasing receptor sensitivity is always a higher priority than increasing total hormone production. It is more efficient to produce less raw material with higher final efficiency than to flood the system and get an average result. First, there is no reason to exhaust the body unnecessarily. Second, chronically elevated production inevitably leads to reduced receptor sensitivity, with the exception of cortisol. This is why more is almost always the wrong strategy. The third law: sensitivity requires absence. Receptor sensitivity recovers only through prolonged absence of interaction with the target hormone or neurotransmitter. There is no shortcut here. No hack. If stimulation is constant, sensitivity will fall. Always. The fourth law: the brain needs time. The time window required for the brain to register lifestyle changes and begin adapting is 14 to 16 days. Any daily behavior performed for a shorter period will not be recognized as an adaptation signal. It will be discarded as random fluctuation. This is why people quit too early and conclude that nothing works. The fifth law: artificial peaks become the new normal. Sooner or later, unnatural hormonal spikes are registered by the brain as baseline, and the normal, stable levels begin to feel insufficient, even dangerous. This is why it is incredibly easy to damage the nervous and hormonal systems with drugs, overstimulation, or chronic abuse of the body. And why recovery can take years. The body has mechanisms for getting used to good, but no real mechanisms for unlearning it. As a result, the organism pushes us to destroy ourselves in an attempt to regain what once felt normal, or to eliminate the object that became a tool for restoring homeostasis. Testosterone, metaphysics. Why testosterone is not aggression, but permission to win. Testosterone is the primary male hormone, but to understand testosterone only as a chemical substance is a mistake. Testosterone is a response to a very specific type of environment. It is released when a man is forced to overcome a manageable, aggressive reality. Testosterone does not rise when there is no struggle, when the desired result can be achieved effortlessly, when competition is unnecessary, when resistance is absent. But testosterone also does not rise when the struggle is overwhelming, when the chances of victory are zero, when the organism understands that no amount of effort will change the outcome. In such conditions, the body redirects resources towards survival, not conquest. Between these two states exists a narrow corridor, and this corridor is where testosterone lives. The struggle is intense, but not fatal. The goal is desirable, but realistic. Victory is not guaranteed, but possible. At this exact moment, the brain forms a request for competition. You see an opening, a window for improving your life, and you understand that circumstances can be beaten. The ability to sense this corridor, to recognize when effort makes sense, is the defining masculine skill. Too easy, there is no fight. Too hard, the fight is meaningless. Only inside this corridor does testosterone emerge. Testosterone as fuel and as reward. At early stages of development, testosterone functions as fuel. It pushes you into confrontation with life. It sharpens focus. It mobilizes strength. But later, when a high level of life organization is reached, testosterone becomes something else. It becomes a reward. It stabilizes mood. It improves baseline well-being. It sends a signal. You know how to fight life, and you can endure adversity. This is why men who once fought their way upward often carry a deep internal confidence long after the battle is over. They lose this state only when they slide, either into excessive comfort or into unbearable pressure. The throng principle. There is a precise metaphor for this dynamic. In a song of ice and fire, the greatest conqueror forged his throne from the swords of defeated enemies. This is not poetry, it is biology. What you use to win becomes the resource you later rule from. By entering struggle, activating testosterone, and winning, you consolidate this hormonal and psychological state. You carry it forward until life becomes too soft or impossibly hard. Testosterone and social behavior. Testosterone regulates behavior in groups. It defines how strongly a man seeks dominance, how willing he is to manifest himself, how actively he attempts to realize his potential. Testosterone is not aggression in its pure form. Testosterone does not create a constant desire to attack others that is governed by neurotransmitters. Testosterone creates readiness to defend what you consider yours, readiness to act instead of retreat, readiness to fight rather than surrender without resistance. Cognitive and intellectual dimension. Testosterone directly regulates intellectual activity. Initially, it governs spatial temporal orientation, the ability to build trajectories of pursuit and escape. The better we orient ourselves in time and space, the better we generate hypothetical action combinations. The more often we hold these combinations in attention, the stronger our ability to perceive abstract models becomes. This is the foundation of intelligence. This also explains why differences in cognitive style exist despite identical brain structures. Hormonal environments create the difference. Testosterone and mental health. Testosterone regulates mood. It is the primary male antidepressant. A man cannot be genuinely well when testosterone levels are chronically low. This is foundational. Testosterone provides self-confidence, belief in one's own strength, optimism, and the desire to live. It is not sufficient for mental balance, but it is absolutely necessary. Physical manifestations. Testosterone regulates body composition, bone density, muscle and ligament strength, adequate blood pressure, nerve contraction strength, gaze tone, posture, and the geometry of the body in space. It shapes how a man exists physically in the world. High testosterone, subjective experience. At high levels, testosterone is felt as calm certainty, not emotional volatility, not loud dominance, quiet confidence. There is effortless respect from others, a masculine structure of body and face, focus on self, offspring, territory. A clear desire to develop one's own, not to be a brick in someone else's wall. You see something, you act. Empty talk repels you. Distant fantasies lose value. The mind is clean. Self-reflection becomes constructive, not destructive. Recognizing areas for improvement creates enthusiasm, not despair. Low testosterone, collapse of agency. At low levels, everything reverses. Self-doubt, timidity, destructive shyness, loss of belief in life and in oneself, general lethargy in the body, the mind, the mood, softness, puffiness, inability to act here and now, a desire to hide from problems and postpone them in the hope that time will fix everything. Hormonal relationships. Testosterone exists within a system. It is inversely related to cortisol and prolactin. It tends to rise alongside dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. It decreases with elevated adrenaline and drops during peak oxytocin states, where competition becomes biologically unnecessary. Normalization through the body. The most important factor is stress management. Unconscious, uncontrolled stress is a silent, merciless killer of potential. Hierarchy is determined by the ability to absorb damage and recover quickly. Those who cannot eventually stop growing. The primary stress reset is sleep. Only deep, biologically safe sleep allows proper hormonal regulation. The more threatening the environment feels to the inner animal, the worse recovery becomes. Light, noise, textures, colors, all influence sleep depth. Sexual energy must be managed consciously. Each ejaculation lowers testosterone and triggers a sharp rise in prolactin. The body does not distinguish between reality, fantasy, or the hand. This mechanism exists to protect offspring, and ignoring it destabilizes regulation. Movement is non-negotiable. Hormones are released into lymphatic fluid. If lymph is stagnant, signaling becomes delayed and useless. High-volume movement creates fluidity. Production without logistics leads to meaningless overproduction and wasted resources. Normalization through the psyche. Victories, victories, and more victories. Find your struggle corridor. Set goals that create pride without destruction. If stress exceeds digestion capacity, slow down. If resistance is absent, increase load. Any activity works if it fits the formula. Struggle gives victory, gives minimal damage. Stop focusing on the total volume of tasks ahead. If you count every second of a long run, you won't finish and you'll break mentally. Focus only on what can be overcome now. Repeatedly immerse yourself in the idea that victory is natural for you. Do what you once believed was impossible. Write down what you have already conquered. Normalization through the social field. Behave as if you are climbing the hierarchy or already near the top. The organism does not distinguish between reality and roleplay. Posture matters. Open chest, shoulders back, chin up. When thinking about the future, look upward. Within 10 minutes, hormonal balance shifts. Occupy space. Defend boundaries. Society is not hostile when you live expansively. Remember, at the bottom of hierarchy, your quirks are mockery. At the top, they become charisma. Do not aim to fit in. Aim to radiate confidence. Avoid stagnation. Remaining the strongest in a small world distorts perception and leads to illusion collapse. Periodically, step beyond your competence to maintain balance between growth and realism. Bugs and warnings. High testosterone can mask real danger. Speed, violence, overconfidence. Feeling invincible does not mean you are. And never judge yourself while in a severely low testosterone state. Distortion exists at both extremes, only the direction differs. Testosterone is not something you boost. It is something you earn through the structure of your life. It rises when struggle is real, when victory is possible, and when you consistently choose engagement over avoidance. The body does not respond to affirmations, it responds to evidence, because hormones don't care what you believe, they care how you live. If this video helped you, subscribe now, because we are just getting started.